Hello and welcome to the Jamaica Mix, a podcast where we dig into the issues shaping Jamaica's democracy, governance, and public life. I am your host, Richard Blackford, and today we're going to take a sharp look at a development that has essentially rocked a lot of Jamaicans, particularly those living in Kingston, over the last couple of days. Now, this relates to the tragic and alarming turn of events in Kingston, which resulted in the demise of two young policemen on Thursday night. This is a crime that has shocked the country, and quite rightly so. Our condolences go out to the families, colleagues, and friends of the officers. But to properly address what has happened, we have to look beyond the immediate act of violence. We must examine the deeper tensions in the Jamaican society, especially between the police and young men, particularly those from lower socio-economic communities, and ask, how did we get here? And how do we stop this maddening cycle from spiraling any further? Now, according to reports from the Waltham Park Road area, the neighborhood has always been tense. This, as I said, from local sources in the area, tensions have been building for some time. When two young officers met their demise at the hands of these criminals, many Jamaicans were not entirely surprised, because underneath the headline is a long-standing troubled relationship between the state via the police and the young men, especially from Jamaica's lower social, economic, and urban communities. Now, for decades, community members have complained of disproportionate policing, frequent use of force, and an escalation in fatalities during police operations. Many view that escalation as coming not just from crime, but from how the policing system is structured, and that when the state uses lethal force as a tool to show we're bringing crime down, the community senses the trigger. Now, historians and social scientists have always argued that the policing in Jamaica is an issue that needs to be addressed. In fact, these social analysts point out to policing in Jamaica since the mid-1970s as part of the structural story, with particular hotspots in inner city Kingston, where young men have borne the brunt of the state's security apparatus. What we see is more than isolated episodes. It is a pattern. Young men targeted in planned operations that often lead to fatalities. Communities feeling as though they are living under a permanent state of siege. A perception that police success is sometimes measured by the demise of the perpetrators rather than arrests or rehabilitation. When that feeling becomes widespread, the result can be a sort of latent anger, sleeper resentment that can erupt at any moment. And as a consequence, the taking out of the two officers may, in fact, be a tipping point. Now, what makes this moment especially precarious is that the broader crime figures may be improving, yet the use of lethal force remains high. This inconsistency breeds frustration, and when ordinary citizens feel they're at risk, not just from criminals, but from confrontations with those meant to protect them, trust erodes. And when that trust erodes, it's usually in one direction. The risk of retaliation increases. Now, calls for swift police retaliation in respect of and in response to the incident on Thursday are understandable. Of course, emotions are raw. But if response is simply more heavy-handed crackdown without reflection, the very tinderbox mentioned earlier could ignite into widespread unrest. Kingston, and in particular our metropolitan areas, cannot be the only fire zone. The risk of spillover into other suburban communities across Jamaica is particularly crucial. Let us now pivot to what can be done. Not instant magic, but tangible steps that may help calm this moment and prevent future cycles. First of all, let's talk about using more senior police leadership in these police operations. Ensure that any planned police operation is led by senior officers, inspector level or higher, with full accountability for the outcomes. It is not just tactical command, it is visibility of responsibility. The second point relates to the clear use of force policy and alternative tactics. Officers must have training in de-escalation techniques, negotiation techniques, and of course, the use of less lethal options when possible, where fatal force is the last resort. Now, the third point relates to body cameras and transparency. Equipping officers with body-worn cameras can build trust. If the public sees that there is accountability and recording of operations, the suspicion of arbitrary violence will drop. Then, of course, there is the question of the use of community policing and engagement. Shift from raid and clear mindset to connect and protect. Embedding officers as community partners, not occupiers, changes the dynamic. Outreach programs, youth mentorship, and conflict mediation matter. Address root socioeconomic causes. Security cannot be divorced from social justice. Young men in inner city areas need opportunity, hope, pathways out of exclusion, investment in education, job training, legal land tenure, and youth centers all help deflate the sense of being trapped. Independent accountability and public trust. Institutions like the Independent Commission of Investigations, that's INDECOM, must be fully empowered. Investigations into fatalities should be prompt, transparent, and seen to be fair. Leadership from civic and faith sectors, such as community and religious leaders, are crucial. In moments of crisis, they can call for calm, mediate trust between police and community, and advocate for reform with moral authority. Now, you might ask, why does this matter to me, from whichever part of Jamaica or the diaspora that I come from? Well, this is because the cost of this breakdown in trust between the police and communities is profound. It undermines the rule of law. It fuels cycles of violence. And most importantly, it erodes Jamaica's social and economic fabric. Now, if expectations of justice is low for one segment of society, it gradually diminishes for all segments. If young men feel they can't trust the police, some will feel they have no recourse but to strike back, often without warning, such as what seemed to have developed on Thursday night. And when that happens, the loss is not just two policemen, it is a community scarred, a nation shaken. In fact, the response from the community to date is that all of the efforts that the people in Waltham Park have been making to try to raise the visibility of the Waltham Park community has basically fallen to the floor as a result of this particular incident. Now, in the wake of the demise of the two officers, we have a choice. We can respond with vengeance, escalation, and more of the shooting, gunfire. Or we can convert the outrage into reform, dialogue, and structural change. The second choice is harder. It requires humility, patience, investment, but it is the only path to safety and stability for all. Now, if you are watching or listening to this, here are three things that you can do. You can speak out. Use your platforms, social media, community groups, workplace, to demand accountability and reform, not simply calls for retaliation. Support community initiatives. Back programs that are aimed at youth mentorship, legal aid, job training. These reduce the underlying tension. Engage in dialogue. Attend or host events where police and community members can talk, not confront. Building trust happens through conversations. Now, let me make this point, because this kind of presentation and the event itself on Thursday night is raw. The grief that follows this is real. And while the way forward is uncertain, one thing is clear. The status quo is unsustainable. I've been saying this for more than the last 10 years. In fact, my good friend, the late Professor Christopher Charles, and I have had these discussions multiple times. He has appeared on this program on numerous occasions, and his line of reasoning is the same. This status quo is unsustainable. So let us commit together to work towards a Jamaica where both its young men and those sworn to protect them can walk the same streets without fear, without hatred, without the expectation of violence. I want to thank you for listening to the Jamaica Mix on our Yard Media website here. If you found this discussion meaningful, please like, subscribe, share, and leave a comment below in the comment section. Again, if you like the program and if you're new to the channel, I am going to invite you to subscribe to this channel. Like the video, share with your friends. How do you believe Jamaica can build better trust between the police and its youth? On that, I would love to hear your thoughts. And until next time, stay safe, stay engaged, and walk good.